Hello there, and welcome to another Criterion interview in celebration of our 60th anniversary. We're talking to members past and present about the history of the Criterion and their memories of it. And joining me today are Karl and Sylvia Stafford. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing? So at this point, I always point out that we're currently under lockdown conditions due to a pandemic that happened in the year that this was recorded. So it's nice to see people and have these chats.
It certainly is.
Hopefully we're coming out of that now. But and I also need to say that if you want to play along at home, you can go to the Criterion Archive and you can find Karl and Sylvia and find their entire catalogue of credits at the Criterion and links to photos and programs and all sorts of things from those productions. But
probably not with us.
Well, let's chat. So I think, Karl, you were at the Criterion first. How did you get involved? Is that correct?
Yep. Yes.
How did you get involved?
I was at school. I was going to be an architect. That was the ambition, for which I needed reasonable grades in English, maths, and some sort of art subject. I decided to look at art itself, and within the options that I could take were design for theatre and the history of theatre, A level. So I opted to do that at CSE because it wasn't a GCSE or an O level as it was at the time. There you are, that's my age. And having done reasonably well at CSE theatre, I went on to do A level, at which point Bryn Jones, who was a part-time member of the Criterion at the time, said, you know what, if you're serious about this, you really ought to do it for real instead of just sitting in a classroom and playing with models. Why don't you go and join the Criterion? So, yeah, okay, go and have a word with Jeff Bennett. This was at Caledon Castle, so I did. Jeff told me to meet him at 7 o'clock on a Wednesday at the theatre and not to be late. So I rocked up, opened the door. This was before any of the extensions on the front of the theatre. It was just a big single door, felt like a castle door. Opened it up, walked in, and the whole place felt as though it had gone very quiet. Needless to say, Jeff was late by about 20 minutes, half an hour. And during that time, a whole lot of people, including Pete Threadgold, Bob Browning, all sort of came along and said, oh, hello, who are you? I'm Pete, I'm Bob, come in, have a chat. Who are you meeting? Jeff. Yeah, you'll wait a while. Yeah, come in and have a chat. At the time, Jeff eventually turned up and introduced us. At the time, the theatre was preparing for Semi-Detached, the play of Semi-Detached. I sort of got involved helping with that, and then fully got involved with Crime and Punishment. And yeah, got the A level, went off to university, stayed at the theatre, got involved in lots of productions, and at a little bit later, a couple of years later, tripped over this one here, who had joined during Guys and Dolls. So yeah, I went for a purpose, and I've been there pretty much ever since, apart from 25 years gap where I got sucked into other things.
So Sylvia, how did you end up there?
I had been in and out of hospital for many years, and I eventually had surgery, which meant that I could start to recover my health. And because I hadn't really been out and about very much, I wanted to do something to meet people. The only people I'd met really had been in hospital. So somebody recommended because they knew that I liked dressmaking, somebody recommended, why don't you join a theatre, make costumes, etc. So I thought, yeah, that sounds quite nice. So a friend of my mum's said that she knew somebody who belonged to the theatre, the Criterion Theatre. They found out details for me, and I duly went along on, can't remember what, it was 1973 anyway. I went along for an interview on a Wednesday night. They were all always on a Wednesday night, weren't they?
Yeah.
On a Wednesday night, and there were one or two other people there as well. And I can remember that I think it was Jim Connery and somebody else was sort of hosting these interviews. And they asked questions with myself and one or two other people, and one or two said they'd like to do something specific, and then they came to me and they said, and what would you like to do? So I said, well, I like dressmaking. Oh, right, okay, well, we've only got one lady making costumes for guys and dolls, Rini Lingard. So they said, when could you start? So I said, well, when do you want me to? Tonight? So so I said, well, okay then. So they introduced me to Rini, who'd come down to see some people about some costumes, and that was it. It was actually, for me, it was the best thing that I could do, because I was thrown in the deep end. I didn't have time to think, and so I so enjoyed being amongst everybody and being part of the costume making. And there were a lot of costumes for guys and dolls, and it was fantastic. And I was there until the gap. We had the gap in the middle, and then I went back to the theatre after that. But it's a long time ago, but 1973. Yeah, I made so many friends there since then. Yes, it's a cliche, isn't it? But it's like being part of one big family.
Yeah. And I mean, you hear that story a lot, like the process of people arriving and then just saying, well, when can you start? Can you start in 20 minutes? Because we need somebody to do such and such. That's never changed, I don't think. That seems to be still the case now. It's not, and it's still a Wednesday evening, I think, normally. I mean,
yes.
Yeah, the one thing that's
pandemic and everything, it's still new members on a Wednesday, and what can you do? What do you want to do?
Yeah.
The one thing that's remained constant is that the bar is open on a Wednesday, and things happen on a Wednesday. I remember when I first joined, the bar was open Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday evening, Sunday lunchtime, and Sunday evening. And
it's amazing we got anything done.
We didn't.
Oh dear.
But different times.
I mean, I actually then was involved in lots of other productions making costumes, but also I was on the bar with you, wasn't I?
Yeah, and you ran the box office.
And I ran the box office for a while.
You did the box office a lot. I mean, that's something that has changed. Like in the early days, the program contained the front of house staff as well, and I think the board as well, like people who are in positions of power. And I don't think that happens anymore, but there's a lot of people that have, that you can see. You forget how many people do coffee bar and box office and bar staff, and it's amazing when you look back in the archive and see these listed. It's like, we've done every. I mean, you must have done box office on every show in 1977, I think.
Yes,
I
must have done. Yeah,
there's about 8 different shows, and you're listed on all of them.
It was. It needed a bit of an overhaul, the box office. So I said, well, I'll do it, and sort of reorganize it. I quite enjoyed doing it, but it was there was a lot involved, and like everything else, you need other people to help as well. And through very often no fault of their own, they can't always help. So it turns out that you're doing it more than anyone else. But I enjoy
Presumably,
doing.
we often talk about how the technology changes. Presumably, the box office in those days, no computers,
Oh
cash
no,
cash only checks. Do we take
Actually,
checks?
oh, nothing like cards. Oh no, don't have card payments. Cash only. Paper tickets.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Oh.
presumably, a huge amount of.
With the old numerator stamp.
Yes.
Ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk.
Did you have the plastic visor and the?
No, not quite. Yeah,
And presumably
it was,
ledgers and records and
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
tax reasons, I would have thought, and
Yeah.
all sorts.
and the box office was actually where
Just opposite the auditorium
just
door.
opposite the auditorium door. It was like a
A little cubicle.
cubicle.
I do
Yeah.
remember that from very early in my early years.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, well, you lot used to be running around the scene dock. Yeah. But
Yeah,
Harold,
I don't remember that. I mean, there's a lot of people that remember myself and my brother as being quite tearaway, running around, and I don't remember. I think we were just sat in the corner reading a script quietly.
Oh,
very,
yeah.
very quietly, yes.
Yeah.
Is
Of
the way
course.
that I remember it.
Yeah. But Simon remembers it, so yeah, he's.
It may be slightly different from other people's memories. Yeah, in terms of like the layout of the theatre, that's been quite interesting because that's changed quite a bit over the years. So, the box office was outside the auditorium door, which kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And obviously now it's sort of in the foyer, which is an extension, which wasn't even there at the time.
Correct.
That
And
used to
then-
be the coffee bar. Where
Yes,
it is now,
Yes.
that was the coffee bar.
right.
I remember being on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
complete with stove and sausage rolls.
Used to cook hot sausage rolls.
Yeah, I can't do that anymore. I
No.
remember doing prop when I was quite young. I was a young teenager of some description. I think we did separate tables, and I remember that all happens in a dining room at a hotel, and we cooked like a 3-course meal in what is now the box office, which used to be like a little kitchen.
Yeah.
I can almost remember the menu. I know it was chicken cacciatore for the middle, and it was definitely an apple charlotte for dessert. I can't remember what the
Oh,
first
God.
course was, but it was like people never had it so good. They kept coming straight to the theatre from work and got fed. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the
Brilliant.
lighting box was, I think someone was saying it used to be on ground level, and then
Yes.
before it
Yes.
moved upstairs.
I don't remember it being at ground level, but
Right.
I ran into about 2 years ago, totally out of the blue, a guy contacted me and said, I used to be at the Criterion. Would it be possible to come and have a look? And he'd been there and moved out to Loughborough, but he walked into the bar and said, oh, where's the lighting control gone? It's
Right.
upstairs. And it was he who told me where it had been, and cleared up a little bit of a mystery, if you like, that when I first joined, when we were first there, you may remember Bennett's director's table that folded down up out of the back wall.
Yes.
Well, that folded into, often wondered what that was all about. That apparently folded into what had been the window for the control room.
Right. So the control room must have been in the bar, where the bar is.
Yeah, it was a cubicle where the archway is, where the bit sticks out by the auditorium door. That was actually a little cubicle, apparently,
Right.
with the old strand dimmer rack in it, the 32-way strand dimmer rack, and the patch panel. And the guy was, I've forgotten his name, Peter, I've forgotten his surname, it escapes me. But he was saying that they'd just finished wiring all the lighting patch back, and they decided to move the whole thing upstairs so they could extend the bar. which was really rather amusing, and would have been a feat, having been part with Ian, having been part of the removal crew when we went solid state. It was a big heavy dimmer rack to haul upstairs, and of course shorten all the wires. But yeah, when I joined, there was no extension on the front at all, and what is now the box office and foyer was the coffee bar and foyer. The office and the bar store bit wasn't there, and of course the toilets down the side weren't there. So the front extension was actually done in 3 different bits.
Those things separately.
Yeah, which is why they're similar but not quite the same. They're actually built in 3 separate chunks. The coffee bar went up with the foyer, and then it was decided that wardrobe hire, which was quite a big thing, quite a big source of income at the time, wardrobe hire was added on, which took the building up to the end of the existing building. And then when the
excuse me, there's somebody at the door being very insistent.
What happens when the side extension went up, the remainder of the single story bit, which is now the bar store, that was added on as well.
Right. Was the wardrobe upstairs at that point? The
wardrobe was upstairs, generally accessed at the time from a ladder in the foyer.
Yes.
Through the little hole in the wall. Subsequently, we put a wooden staircase up the outside of the building, which and put the small door in that allowed you into the wardrobe that way.
Yeah.
All of that was food. All of that was really to facilitate the wardrobe hire,
right?
The costume hire, and then it was decided after a few folk had cracked their heads on the low doors that it might be a good idea to actually move costume hire downstairs and keep our, if you like, archive mainstay costumes upstairs.
So that's interesting. I'm always interested when we unearth like another little bit of Criterion history. I didn't know about that. So the costume hire was a big thing. Who was hiring costumes? Was it
all sorts of people? Fancy dress, other societies,
other amateur theatres.
Yeah.
Yes, it was quite a big thing at the time. You'd earn quite a bit of money. There was a lot involved, but yes, you earned quite a bit of money.
It did, it did really well. And you were involved, weren't you? Jane Railton was involved.
I'm trying to think who else.
Pete and Reenie had moved out of Coventry by that point, so they weren't involved. I think Norma Bainbridge got involved a little bit as well, didn't she?
And Maureen
Copping.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there was quite a few.
It's a nice steady income flow.
I think it's interesting how the theatre has sort of tapped into those different ways of trying to make money over the years.
Oh yes,
fairly resourceful. It has to be said. How can we make some money out of what we have? And the bar, of course, has always been. Keep talking about the bar. Wow. We tried our hand at lighting hire at one point, but that just became far too much hassle. It's costing far too much in replacement lamps and such things. So
right,
so knocked that one on the head fairly quickly. Of course, the bar. Keep going back to the bar. The bar store itself, all the barrels were kept outside down the side.
Oh right.
Side of the building, where the current toilet block is. The spare barrels were kept outside. Live barrels were had a little lean-to shed, and if the barrels ran out, if a keg ran out, you had to leap out through the bar, out the front door, through the side gate, the barrels, snow, sun, anything, and yeah, just get on with it. And amazingly, nothing ever really got stolen from there, which is really quite amazing. And then initially, when we started thinking about the side extension, we moved the barrels, the live barrels, under the floor of the bar. They had traps.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that, I think.
Yeah, that was sort of health and safety.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot's changed in that regard. I mean, even you think about the lighting box, even, you know, not a huge amount of time ago, that the fire safety, like the escape situation from up there, it's like, it was pretty, it was probably quite dangerous. But luckily, no one cared in those days.
Well,
you got into because I did some lighting as well once I'd met this one. And the way into the lighting box was up the ladder from the foyer. Then you pulled the ladder up and that was it.
Somebody had told me that their lighting training involved how to carry a tray of beers up the ladder. Yeah. How to climb the ladder with one hand so that you could actually get up there.
Yeah.
Because that was the important thing. Like being in a submarine, once you had to take rations up with you because there was no way down.
Yeah. And then when we had the outside door, it was almost a badge of honor to be able to get out of the lighting box through the hurdle between the current wardrobe and the lighting area without touching the sides. You just hurdle through and without cracking your head.
So for people who don't know, there is from the lighting box to the other end of the wardrobe is like pretty much the entire width of the theatre, and right in the middle there is sort of 2 steps up in a very compact little corridor, 2 steps up, and then like a sort of cat flap that you sort of have to scramble through.
Yes.
Is that still the case? Is that still there?
Yeah, that's still
but
there.
But you can now get in from both ends, so it's less of a.
Yes, it's less of an issue, and if necessary, actually get out through the front.
Yes, there's a fire escape at the front, which is more like a doggy door than a cat flap. So that's quite a leisurely escape, that one.
Absolutely, yes, very thoughtfully provided.
So Carl, you were around until sort of the late 80s, I think. Which was, as I pointed out, and we had a little pre-chat, which was when I sort of started at the Criterion, and then you were gone a long time, and then you came back almost entirely at the same time that I left, and have been gone since. There's no coincidence here.
Absolutely not. No. The Jungle Telegraph is wonderful. No, actually, what happened, Jamie, was that I found in the Echo, in the local paper, Echo magazine, noticed that the Criterion were going to do Guys and Dolls 2, redo Guys and Dolls, which was and still is quite important to us.
Yeah. Was that one of your first? Well, it was both of your first productions.
Yeah.
It's the one that we met at. I'd been there.
Okay.
I'd been a member for the best part of 3 years, and Sylvia joined for Guys and Dolls, and many amusing stories, some of which can be published and some shouldn't.
Carry on with what you're saying.
Anyway, the original Guys and Dolls was 1973, and Guys and Dolls 2, we're jumping right into 2010, 2011?
2011, yeah. It was for the just after the 50th birthday anniversary. So I thought it might be a wheeze to get involved with Guys and Dolls again. I had been doing some lighting in amongst it during my walkabout, mainly for rock bands and folk bands, a little bit of work at schools for PTA and school productions, and a bit of work down at the Tech. But I thought it might be a good idea, nice idea to set foot back in the Cry again, and was about to ring Ian Knight to put the idea forward. He beat me to it, and one Saturday, I think, hello, how you doing? What you doing? All sorts of things. Well, I'm lighting this is Ian, I'm lighting the Festival of Plays that we're doing for the 50th anniversary. Oh, that's nice. That's good. I lit the original, helped light the original one in '76. Well, I'm going to light it with vintage equipment, and thought it might be nice to have vintage operators operating it. Thank you, cheeky so-and-so. Yeah, okay. I could be interested in that. I was going to ring you to see if there's any chance of getting involved in Guys and Dolls. Ah, well, you'll need to talk to Annie about that. Okay. Well, why don't you come down and we'll have a drink? So I did, and long story short, I was blown away by the fact that I'd missed 2 or 3 generations of lighting control at the theatre, having been involved in helping to remove the original Strand stuff when we first went solid state. Never got to operate it. Absolutely blown away by that. Ian got me operating a couple of nights on Arabian Nights, I think it was. Then we got involved in the festival. During that time, I spoke to Annie. She said, "Oh, what sort of things do you want to do?" "Oh, don't mind. What's available?" And Annie never actually said, "Yeah, we need this, that, and that." But somehow or other, I got myself agreeing to design, build, and light the set for Guys and Dolls, which actually was fun. Call it a turnkey, and been back, pretty much ever since. And yeah, it feels comfortable. Felt like being in an old pair of slippers.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Like, some people have said, you go away for years and years and you walk in and, there are some new faces and things have changed, but essentially the fabric of the building and the fabric of the company is kind of the same.
Yes.
Yeah, the attitudes are the same. The characters they're different characters, but the characteristics of the characters are pretty much the same.
Which is really nice.
Yeah.
Really nice.
Yeah,
yes.
There's always the Pete Threadgold type is always around the theatre, the outgoing, friendly, make friends with anyone and talk to anyone. The grumpy Karl Stafford is always about somewhere along the line.
No comment.
And they're always keen. They're always keen new members, and one of the things that's really very close to my mind all the time is that we need to keep the average age of the departments young. One of the things I found that was very sad when I came back was that the average age of the lighting department was pushing 60, and we've now pulled it down to a far more respectable sort of 30, I would have thought. And that's what we need to do to keep the theatre going.
Yeah. I mean, sorry, go on.
I was good. The nice thing is, the main thing about the theatre is, if you join the theatre, you join it because you love theatre. You love live theatre. So that's the common denominator, if you like. And that's why people keep going back, whether they belong as actors or behind the scenes, or whether they're there to watch. or anything else that they might be involved in. But that's the common denominator.
Yeah, and the fact that, well, from my point of view, my personal point of view, is that, yeah, the theatre has the correct name above the door, because, yeah, the one thing that really does my head in is people referring to it as Amdram, or bunch of amateurs. We, from 1971 through to today, the general attitude of the place is that second best isn't good enough. Won't be tolerated, and people strive to improve.
Yes,
all the time.
Yeah, the standard is incredibly high, isn't it? I mean,
it is. I think if you find that, particularly when I've been on, because I do things like coffee bar and ticket sales on front of house, that sort of thing, that people who come and watch a play there, who've never been to the Criterion before, in the interval, because perhaps they don't know anyone else, they come and they talk to us on the coffee bar, and they say, it's amazing, isn't it, the quality of the acting. And actually some people do come out quite stunned how good the theatre is. And I said, we always say, well, yes, it is.
That's what we do.
That's what we do.
I think standards of non-professional theatre have varied massively over the years in different places. So some people come out the interval just amazed that nothing's fallen over, or nothing's exploded, or anyone's just forgotten where they were and wandered, fallen off stage. It's quite a low standard at the bottom. But then, yeah, I think no one's ever come out and said that, you could tell that was, it's amateur in that it's unpaid. It's not unprofessional. It's not like people are kind of taking it not very seriously.
Yes.
Everyone strives all of the time to be the very best that they can
Definitely.
be.
Very definitely. Yeah.
And that's been the case right through, from speaking to original founder members. That's what they set it up for, and that's what sort of bled through all of the years. As far as I can tell, there's never been really a prolonged period where it kind of became, well, I mean, Carl's obviously going to say, well, he wasn't there, it all fell apart, obviously, but Can you remember, are there productions, I mean, Guys and Dolls obviously being a big one, but are there productions that you remember very fondly and kind of stand out for you?
I have to say that Crime and Punishment is up there, because it was the first, like Sylvia with Guys and Dolls, it was the first real production that I got myself involved with, and it was a turning point for me, from calling everybody sir to all of a sudden we had, there was Jeff, and there was Karl, and there was Jeff Hadley, and there was Terry Brown. I bumped into Graham Fair, who not many people realise, but Graham was a resident of Alderman's Green, which is where I was born. And it turns out that when I was in a pram, that Graham would be either press ganged or volunteer to push me around the block to get me to sleep. Some things never change, I
was going to say, what were you were 15, 16 at the time?
Well, months. So bumped into all sorts of people, and met all sorts of new people who have become friends, and over a long period of time, and it was a fairly substantial set that we were involved with. I'm still amazed how we actually managed to build it. It was a wonder at the time. How are we going to have this? those people who may have seen the production may remember it. It was set in a house with a massive staircase and an upstairs flattened apartment and downstairs. Fairly grimy, and it just amazed me how we managed to build this set from literally beer crates and canvas.
Right.
Days of canvas flats. Yeah, it taught me how to build canvas flats from scratch, and how to make things look. Jeff Hadley, another teacher at Caledon, one of his famous quotes was, "Yeah, it's only got to last 7 days." Don't make it too strong. It's only got to last 7 days.
Yeah. Just make sure you don't make it 6. That would be the worst.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, we were very much on a make, do, and mend. There was pretty much no budget, or didn't seem to be any budget. Everything was nailed together because it was before the days of electric screwdrivers, and not many people had the skill to use a pump screwdriver without spearing themselves. So the hammer was the tool of choice. And yeah, after the show, we spent half of Sunday denailing. That was one of the processes. You take the set down and you take it all out the back, all the bits of wood, you denail it all and store it carefully away for the next set, even if it was only 6. Yeah, there's none of this throwing away.
No.
It's very much could come in useful one day.
And most of the nails would have gone back in the box as well afterwards. The ones that were ruined.
Yes. It very proud Mr. Bennett turned up one day. So I've got a present for you. So what's that then, Jeff? Here you are, some more nails for the set. And I don't know where he got them from. They looked as though he'd dug them up in the garden. I think that, sort of looking back, he had probably replaced or had a fence replaced and pulled all the nails out. These things were bent beyond belief. They were rusty. They were absolutely dreadful, but he was convinced that he was doing us all a favour. And straighten them out. They'll be okay for another 6 sets.
Yeah, I was going to say, and they probably appeared in another 20 productions after that. There are certain things. There's always one of my favourite things in the scene doc was always when you can see the paint on a flat, and you can see about like 17 different productions where you've got layers of colours, and people can look at it and go, right, that was Barefoot in the Park, and that would have been Amadeus, that would have been there, and then actually track it back all the way down to the bottom.
Yes.
One of the most amazing things when I came back, wandering through the scene doc, there were still 2 boxes of about 15 inches cube that we built for Arturo Ui, called the Bennett box. They were still there. I think one of them still exists.
That's 1975.
75 Arturo, yeah.
It's 45 years of service, that cube.
Indeed.
Yes.
Indeed.
Yes.
It should have its own anniversary in a couple of years.
That's right. Well, the other amusing thing with Arturo was that the set was built in a way, everything was built in situ for it on the Criterion stage. The design called for one single piece of flattage on stage left, I believe. So it was all built, and these cubes were built, and the production went on. On the Thursday, Jeff came along and said, "We're taking it to the Talisman." We're taking it to the Talisman.
We didn't go and throw it through a window, did we? Was that in the amateur theatre turf wars of the?
No, taking the whole play. We're going to take the play to the Talisman and we're going to perform it. Brilliant. Can I ask a question, Jeff? Yeah, of course you can. Yeah, of course you can. How are we going to get this 14-foot square flat out of a 6-foot square door? And he just looked at me in that way, still puffing on his pipe, and said, "I'm sure you'll find a way. Good night," and disappeared.
Yeah.
I need to find some. My favorite one of those is I need to find someone to tell the story of the lady in the van. Who managed to, I don't know who was responsible for that, but somebody got a van into the building and got a van back out of the building. And I want to know, there is no entrance or exit big enough for that van to have got through. And I'm intrigued.
Mike Tooley.
I think Mike Tooley was involved. I think he's on my list. He will definitely be answering the questions on that.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, I usually ask people, like, have you got any interesting anecdotes about the theatre? And it's nice that I rarely have to ask the question because so many come out just organically. But have you got any? Have you got any better ones? You got any?
Well, when I first joined in Guys and when I did join in Guys and Dolls, I'd seen Karl around, but he was at uni, so he wasn't there very often until the run of the play, and he was set moving sets in the production, and I was still really quite meek and mild, and there were lots of costume changes in the wings, and I was sat on the steps where it goes from the men's dressing room up to the ladies' dressing room, with a costume in my hand, ready to go into the wings to do a change for somebody. And suddenly, this tall chap dressed in black stood in front of me and said, "I've just changed the set and my trousers are split." And he promptly took his trousers off in front of me. I stood there in just a shirt, pair of boxers, and he said, "Could you mend these, please?" And I went, "Yes." So that was really my main introduction to Karl. So I repaired his trousers and gave him back to them before the next set change. But that was a bit, yes.
It's very good service, just set changers getting costume attention.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. In a similar sort of vein, we did The Unknown Soldier and His Wife for the Little Theatre Guild visit. And Chris Smith and I were, the set had two ramps with trolleys, trucks going in from stage left and stage right. And Chris Smith and I were pulling these trucks back and forth. But at some point, we were called upon, Chris and I were called upon to don a couple of Arabic costumes and chase Arthur McCaffrey around the stage, capture him, and cart him off to be given the snip. And somebody thought, so yeah, we were backstage in black, and then we had about 30 seconds to dive into these costumes, get back on, chase Arthur around, cart him off, and get changed back again. Somebody one night decided it'd be really quite a wheeze to swap our costumes around. So Chris and I piled off from stage left and stage right into the men's dressing room, grabbed our respective costumes, or so we thought, jumped into them. Those that don't know, Chris is about a foot shorter than I am. And so he went on looking a bit like Coco the Clown, and I went on with these very tight trousers and all in one. Running around. Arthur was obviously in on the gag because he made it even more difficult for us to catch him. And Chris tripped over. I almost rugby tackled him, and in the same process split the costume. So
I've been two separate trouser splitting, right? Okay, these aren't connected.
No, I've been on stage twice, and both times I've split the back of my pants. Yeah, in front of an audience. So yeah, there's something going on there.
And we've just spoken for so long about how professional the attitude of the theatre is, and
Oh, it was done very, yeah, I've never found out. So it was terribly.
Professional japes.
Oh yes, yes, definitely. Yeah.
And
But then
how much notice did you get that, like, oh, actually, you're going to be in it as well?
It was, I think it was just after the costume check on what has become Long Sunday, on the dress
Long
rehearsal.
Sunday. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Is that your only stage credit? Is that have you?
Yes, I think so.
All that time around the theatre, you were never tempted to have a crack?
No, Anne-Marie managed to get me involved in the Italian Straw Hat, the webcast, but I don't suppose that counts really because it's not on stage.
Oh, it counts. I'm sure it counts now. If we can get it on the archive, we will.
Didn't really have to remember anything.
No,
yes, to remind everybody, there was a Zoom production of Italian Straw Hat during the pandemic when we couldn't do anything at the actual theatre. To start the 60th anniversary, we did a Zoom production of Italian Straw Hat where Karl did a turn. And I can't believe it's taken that long.
Yeah, well, I figured that the Criterion 60, I've been there, for on and off 50 years, or since 50 years ago. So yeah, it's about time I did something.
The first festival was in
1976.
That was the year that was really hot. The summer was really, really hot. And there were three plays. I'm trying to think.
No. There were two anchor
plays.
There were 8 plays in total.
Yeah.
There were 2 anchors and 6 support plays.
And I was involved in 2 or 3, and I did prompt, set change. I did all of it in was it 1 play or 2? Anyway, it was so hot that that summer that we were doing it, that we actually, I can remember it was trying to think who was directing it. Anyway,
all sorts of people.
Yes.
Jeff ran it.
No, I know this particular play. And we actually went out into the countryside to rehearse 2 or 3 nights because it was too hot to rehearse anywhere else. And it was, I can't even remember the name of the play now, but it was, that's why I don't perform on stage. I can't remember things. And it was just so nice to actually get out in the, but that's just one of the things that I remember, that year was particularly hot. And it was, the setting on stage was very basic, but it was nice to be involved in other things apart from just costumes. Yeah.
That was about the nearest thing to rep that we'd achieved. Yeah.
I'm just looking, I mean,
6 supports, and every night was different. It was anchor play 1 and 1 and 2. Then it was anchor play 2, 3 and 4, and it went through for a fortnight. So nothing, no one night was ever the same as another.
I'm just looking at the program. I say for people playing along at home, that program is incredible because it lists all of the productions and all of the people involved, and pretty much everybody was involved. And I'm pretty sure any member at the time would have been involved in some capacity.
Yes,
and people who had been members and for whatever reason had moved away did actually. Some of them actually came back for that, to get involved in that festival.
And it's amazing. There was a Beckett, there's a Brian Friel, there's John Mortimer, there's Peter Schaffer and Tom Stoppard. Real variety of things. Like go and have a look at that. I'm going to have a read of that later, because otherwise I tend to get distracted and I'm just looking in another window. You could just be chatting about anything you wanted.
Yeah. yes,
yeah,
yes. It was. I think I can look back and say, well, everything that I had been involved in was great fun. Really, everything. Yeah, yeah. It was. Yes.
It's a good place to be involved with, and yeah, it gets under your skin, and you can't escape once you've been involved.
Yeah, and I mean, and as you say, like, you know, your anniversary is pretty much in line with the theatres. I mean, not quite as many years, but you know, you meet people there. There's a question that we often asked about, you know, what a difference the Criterion's made to your life, and it's incredible that, you know.
Oh yeah.
It's a huge part of most people's.
I mean, there's so many couples, married couples, or just you know, as a couple, who have met at the theatre. It's an amazing place to meet somebody to marry, or to be, you know, as a couple. I
think Jill Warren, when I interviewed her, said that it's you know, before Tinder, this was the most amazing dating app in the world, because you knew that you were going to meet people that were just like you, that people were interested in the same thing. You had this common interest, and then you were sort of thrown together to work together, you know, for a long period of time. So it's a natural place where relationships can blossom.
Yeah. I mean, we married in 78, and then Simon came along the following year. So, and he's just had his 42nd birthday. So, you know, it's and we're not the only ones who've married and who've had big anniversaries. It's not. So yeah, it is. Unlike when you go to work and you can meet people and you can become friends with them. You don't always have the same interests, but meeting in a theatre, you do. Yeah.
Not necessarily the same opinions, but that's good. That's healthy.
No, exactly. I mean, that's part and parcel, isn't it? You make another thing that Jill said. You also meet a diaspora of people. You know, there's not many places, like maybe at work, but there's not many places where you would choose to hang out and be friends with people who were 10, 20, 30, 40 years older than you, and have that common interest.
That's right. Yeah.
What for the next 10 years? What would you like to see happen? I mean, obviously, at the moment, because of the pandemic, most thoughts are just, I'd like to get back in the building and be a part of it again.
I actually went in a couple of weeks ago to check on a couple of electrical circuits, and the theatre is still there. I'm happy to report that's certainly something where you stand or sit around in the building. The atmosphere is still there. It's still sitting there waiting for us. It's just sleeping. I don't think I honestly don't think it's anything that is going to affect the theatre long term. It's likely to be different. Who knows what the new normal is? We might have to adapt in the way that we seat people. We may have to adapt in the way that we put shows on. But you know what? You don't get to be 60 years old by not doing things right, and the basics. I think that the current crop of the board are called the board of trustees, but effectively we are all now custodians of the Criterion. It's an entity. The Criterion Theatre is an entity of its own, and we are the custodians. And the next 10 years we need to get others involved, stay involved ourselves, evolve and adapt to whatever is thrown at us.
Yeah, that's so nice. I mean, as you say, like 60 years, it's all been adaptation. You know, it's always had to adapt to keep up. So it just needs to continue doing that. And yeah, custodians of the building, but custodians of the company, and keeping that kind of professionalism and that sort of verve alive.
I mean, one thing I think is brilliant, and I hope it really continues, is the youth theatre. I know that a few youngsters who were in youth theatre have come through already, but I think it's so important. I mean, you touched on it anyway, but so important that we have more younger people. I mean, I know we all lead busy lives, but I think it's so important that we have more younger people coming in to continue the Criterion as it is, not as it is in the building, because that might change, but the how the theatre, I can't think how to explain it, how the theatre feels and how the theatre runs.
The community and the...
I think it's so important that young people should become involved. And if they become involved in the youth theatre and then come through, that's brilliant. But anyone else who comes into the theatre...
well, involved and encouraged.
Encouraged, yes.
I think certainly one of the differences that I know exists, and for the good, for the better, is that in the late 60s, early 70s, not just Criterion, all sorts of societies, be they tennis clubs, golf clubs, theatre companies, were run by people who thought that they always knew best, and you had to be of a certain age before you were taken seriously in decision making. Okay, kid, you've got a talent there for acting or lighting, but what you know about management, leave it to the grown-ups. That I'm very happy, very pleased to see has changed and is changing. The current situation is that we are involving younger people, listening to their ideas, and taking on board the suggestions and the ideas that will move the theatre forward. It really isn't for us to say, I don't think, that, in the next 10 years the theatre should be doing this. It's for us to be encouraging the younger members and people who are maybe not members at all at the moment, encouraging them to develop their ideas to move it forward, because after all, they're the ones that are going to be running it in 10 years' time.
Definitely.
Well, yeah, hopefully we'll be able to just pass off all the work onto them at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
and still enjoy it.
I sincerely hope I'm not incapable of climbing ladders, but it'd be really quite nice to have be able to sit in the seats and say, we need to move that up there and
a bit higher. You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Keep going. But live theatre. Yes, we still need to be, the Criterion still, I believe, needs to be pushing the boundaries and moving forward, developing the talents of the folk that are coming through. And we need to be, how do you do it? Everybody talks about inclusivity. You can't, that's the biggest nut to crack, is getting people involved who are maybe feeling marginalised, and that's came from Belgreen. So I did it, and
Well, thank you both so much for your time and your anecdotes. If you remember any more, we'll write them down. At this point, I always encourage people to. You can do the same. You can go onto the archive, go onto any production or any person, and you can leave your own memories for people to read. They are vetted, so please, nothing libelous or derogatory. I've been caught foul of that already. So just make sure they are moderated. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you. Hopefully this year. By the end of the year, hopefully we'll be able to all get together and have a lovely celebration.
That would be
Indeed.
wonderful.
That'd be
Wonderful.
brilliant, Jamie. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Thanks very much.